So today we're going to talk about the things people do that actually repels good men and women from our vortex of finding love. And I'm really excited to bring in my coach in the house, Sabrina Rising. So welcome, Sabrina.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So we're going to dive right into it. So I want to share with you a Bumble profile. And I want you to, we're going to read it, or I'll have you read it out loud, what you can see. And then we're going to talk about this. Can you see that?
Yes, I can see that. Okay. So this is a non-negotiable, right?
Yeah.
This is a female
Yeah.
dating profile, and her non-negotiable reads an egocentric narcissist, never been married, no contact with his kids, expecting women to fawn over him, jackass, wasting my time.
Now,
Wow.
let me just really quickly. I saw this. I had to take a screenshot and I had to share it with you because to me, that is riddled with so much subconscious, energy.
It's very telling. I can't imagine. Yeah. I mean, we are always attracting to us things that are a match for the vibration that we're holding,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of energy there. There's a lot of very specific energy there. There's a lot of unresolved anger, bitterness, resentment, obviously some deep hurt and some deep wounds that this person has experienced. You can sort of see all her scars, right? And kind of out there on display. And I think most people are doing that without being aware. This is something we do unconsciously because the subconscious mind is responsible. And I say this all the time, as you know, the subconscious mind is responsible for 90% of everything that we are manifesting into our lives, right? So
wait, can you really quickly differentiate between the subconscious mind and unconscious? Because I sometimes mix up the two just by communication.
Interchangeable. I really do think they're interchangeable.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, they are. There's different schools of thought on it. There's obviously the conscious mind is self-explanatory. That's the part that we're aware of, what we remember, the part of you that hears this conversation and remembers it clearly, and then there's the subconscious mind, which is really our felt experience, everything that is being recorded for us on a deep cellular level that we don't necessarily have access to, the felt, the feelings, when something unpleasant happens and we don't process it fully, the rest kind of gets stored unconsciously, subconsciously. So unconscious is simply sort of the bridge that says, I'm not aware of this part of my thinking or this part of my felt experience.
Okay. So let's bring it back to this woman's profile because I immediately read it and I'm a lay person out there and I'll be candid with you. It just totally turned me off. I mean, she could have the most amazing photographs on the planet, but it still was an absolute turnoff because like you said, I think it represents a lot of deep pain and it's being projected, and now it's being projected out to the world because now it's public.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the profile might as well read, I've been so hurt and I have been so jaded and I'm so guarded and all of my walls are up. And, I can see if you're going to hurt me, like I already see you, so don't even bother contacting me type of thing. And that's basically what that profile says, and so I think that for anybody who is, putting themselves out there and wanting to date and wanting to attract love or, relationship, any kind of relationship, it's really important that we become aware, self-aware of what we are projecting out into the universe, right? And so if you have a conscious desire to create loving partnership, but you have a subconscious belief that it's not possible for you, or you're not lovable, or love is not safe, or love is a struggle, or love is, you're going to get hurt, right?
Yeah.
Or that no good men out there, whatever your inner dialogue is that you may not necessarily, some of that you might be aware of, but you're not fully aware of how it's affecting you in your life and how powerful it is, right? We might say, hey, I'm a positive thinker or positive speaker. And yet in those unconscious moments, the moments we're not aware of, right? We're like, oh, I can't afford that, or I can't do this, or this isn't, sure. Like you can hear the inner critic, the inner dialogue that comes up and doubts the process, that really doubts, the possibility of attracting love.
Okay, so the other day I was talking to a prospective client and she immediately started to go into what's wrong with the dating process.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I felt like the energy was so strong in the negative that
Yeah.
I felt like in that moment there was almost no room to convince her otherwise, like if, and to some degree, to the extent that I want to validate someone's experience, or at least let me reframe that, acknowledge someone's experience, I don't want to necessarily fall, into the trap of agreeing that that's an absolute. But I think there was almost this unconscious mindset going on that she immediately is already starting behind the eight, you know, behind the football field, or whatever the expression is, behind the eight ball.
Yeah. Well, first of all, as a facilitator, the last thing you want to do is meet people, is enable, anyone to stay committed to their story of
Yeah.
whatever story is not working for them. Right. And so our job as facilitators is to remind the people that we're coaching, what's possible. Right now,
Yeah.
if someone is not open to possibility, right, like it really takes there's two main ingredients to making a successful transformational conversation between
Okay.
and client, and
Yeah.
that is, in my humble opinion, the facilitator being willing to serve, coming from
Yeah.
love, coming from an empathetic, genuine interest in serving the highest and best good of whoever you're talking to, and the person receiving that information is open and willing, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're not coachable and you don't believe it's possible and you don't actually believe in change, then you don't really want help. You just want to be validated, right? And there's a big difference between, having someone agree with our pain and
Yeah.
validate our pain versus having someone give us empathy and then offering us another perspective, right? Because
Yeah. So,
when, when a person's in pain, the most effective thing we can do is give empathy. You got to give empathy before education, right? And so that
well,
must
wait a
be.
minute. Is acknowledgement the same as empathy? Because I certainly acknowledge someone's experience, but I don't necessarily want to go down to that level either, because I feel like, granted, that might be empathy, and by the way, I can certainly empathize because I've believed that, but I don't want my consciousness to agree with that either.
Empathy and agreement are not the same thing.
Okay. Okay.
You can come to me and say, there's just no good women out there. There's
Yeah.
nobody out there who's ever gonna help me, who's ever gonna meet my need in relationship, who's ever gonna love me the way I want to be loved.
Yeah.
And I would say, I can hear that you've had a lot of painful experiences.
Yeah.
Hear the pain in everything you're sharing, and I can acknowledge that must be very hard for you. So what
Right.
I've done is I've acknowledged you and I've offered
Yeah.
empathy, but I haven't
Okay.
agreed with you.
Okay, got it, got it, got it. Okay, well, I just wanted to be clear on that, because I think a lot of people, and even coaches, they go down and agree it, and all they do is continue the process of having them in this victim, or this unconscious mindset of almost victimhood. Like this woman, to me, feels like victim consciousness.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, there's only two consciousness, victim consciousness, fear-based consciousness, and
Okay.
consciousness, which is the empowered creator consciousness, right? So,
Yeah.
of course, if you feel like you've been victimized, and that's not just, we're not trying to diminish someone's experience, we're not trying to invalidate someone's experience, and we're not trying to lack empathy, right? We need to have empathy in order to heal. When someone feels that their feelings have been considered, right, and that
Yeah.
they feel seen and recognized in their experience, then we can create an opening and saying, what if I told you that it didn't have to be that way? What if I see
Hmm.
the possibility of something different? Right. And then you can offer people examples of other people you've worked with, or other, success stories and things like that, of things that happen every day, miracles happen for everyday people all the
Yeah.
time. Right. And so just introducing that possibility. And for most people, it's just a matter of, having someone hold that space for them. Right.
Sure, sure,
So
sure.
they can believe it's possible.
So coming back to this person, and where I wanted to go with regard, like the title is Repelling Good Men, is that I suspect this person has a desire to be in relationship, like a real desire to be in relationship. At the same time, the other side of the coin is, I'm afraid, I don't trust, There's
Yeah.
no, there's, there you're jackasses, you're narcissists, there's only married men on the dating sites. I mean, it's almost counterintuitive to the desire,
Yes.
but the
100%.
subconscious is sabotaging it all.
Right. Well, and here's the thing, I mean, I agree that the subconscious mind can sabotage what the conscious mind has an intention for, simply because they're not in alignment, right?
You're not what?
You're not in alignment. If you have a
Yes, yes.
desire to create meaningful, lasting love, but as I said earlier, but you have a subconscious belief that there's nothing but jackasses out there or narcissists or whatever, this person is saying in the dating profile that you introduced at the beginning. If you believe that it's not possible for you, the subconscious mind wins every time. It wins every time. And it just, all it's doing is playing out the belief, right? The belief system is influencing every cell in your body. And every cell in your body is emitting that frequency, and that we're attracting to ourselves everything that is like ourselves. So if you believe that life is hard, you're going to attract experiences that are difficult, that are a struggle, that are hard, because we accumulate the evidence of our beliefs. This is part of the lived human experience, right? We are out there accumulating, the evidence of the belief about wealth, health, relationships, everything that we learned as children, and everything that we've accumulated throughout the course of our lives that has lined up with our subconscious beliefs. We have the evidence for that. And we can say, this is the way it is because I have proof of that. Right. So our job as facilitators, or anyone willing to do some real inner work, is to look at what we're holding onto subconsciously. How are we out of alignment with what we consciously desire? How am I hurting myself when I say I want something, but I'm putting all this other negativity out there and I'm essentially canceling out my desires, right? How am I doing this?
So I remember shortly after my divorce when I began internet dating, and I'll tell you this quick story. I may have shared this with you before, but I remember I went on a first date with someone, had a really nice date, but something wasn't quite right. And then a few days later, I went on another date with a nice woman and something wasn't right. And another date with a nice woman, something wasn't right. And within 1 year, I actually had over 100 first dates.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I was like doing them 2 or 3 a week kind of thing.
That's amazing.
and well, you know what? I had the time, I wanted the company. I mean, it was also fulfilling a lot of wounded needs inside of myself. But I realized after 1 year, I go, wait a minute. Like I look back and I said, what's the common denominator in all this? It was me. Like I had to go through all of these experiences to really say, wait a minute, the problem isn't the women, the problem is me. Yeah. And that's when I I remember the movie The Secret came out at that time. I'd already read the book, Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. Yeah. So I was like, let me revisit that. And it began my journey of healing. Yeah. So what does it take for someone to become aware of how our subconscious mind is, like our behavior, like what's it take for someone to like turn the corner? For me, it took a lot of smacks upside the head.
Yeah. Well, I love the iceberg analogy. Like, we have the conscious mind is like the 10% of what we're aware of that you can see, right? That you can, what's on the surface, what you can see, what you can access, what you can shift in the moment. And then there's what's underneath the surface, which is, the bulk of the iceberg, which is the subconscious mind. That's 90% of, again, what we're creating. Yeah. And I love this question. Real inner work cannot happen unless we are exploring the depths of our subconscious experience.
Okay.
And there's only 3 ways in which we can truly explore what's happening for us on a subconscious level. The first way is to look at our reactions. The second way is to look at our attractions. What we're calling it. And the third way is to examine our dreams.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about one of my dreams then in a few minutes.
Thumbs up. Did you see those little thumbs up, Bumble?
Oh, maybe. Oh,
YouTube agrees with me.
Okay. Cool.
So our reactions is what triggers us, right?
Okay.
So when I'm all of a sudden angry or afraid or upset or triggered by anything, okay, it's because there is something in my subconscious mind that has just been poked, right? There's something coming up for me that's stored for me on a cellular level that's coming up for healing. I would say it's coming up to be cleared and to be resolved. Okay, we're not all of a sudden upset about something, right? Usually something will trigger a wound that's been there our whole lives, as you've heard me say before.
By the way, I didn't know you were going to bring this up, but you know, I did a post this morning on triggers. Can I read it to you real quick?
Of course, of course.
Yeah. So there was a meme that went into it, but I want to read the post. It said, "Have you ever been triggered? When this happens, we often go inward, feeling pain for just a moment, and then blame the persons, or circumstances that caused, or circumstances that we perceived caused the pain.
Right.
Blame is the avoidance mechanism because the way I see it, a trigger is an opportunity to heal a part of self that feels scared or unloved.
Of course.
What if the pain is a precursor for healing?" So
of course it is, always is. And this is universal truth. I mean, whatever is triggering us in the moment is triggering a wound that's been there for a very long time. So it's really important to take a deep look at it. Say, I constantly get triggered by this specific issue. There must be something happening for me subconsciously that says, this is unfair, or life is unfair, or I'm not safe, or whatever the subconscious belief is. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's reactions. When we look at our attractions, this is the easy part. We look at what we're manifesting. What's showing up in your life, right? What kind of people are you attracting? What kind of things are happening to you? Do you feel like bad things happen to you all the time, or do you feel like you just can't catch a break, or do you feel like you don't have luck, or do you feel like great things, you have luck, or great things are happening all the time? Whatever the case may be, you look at what you're calling in, and that is a really good indication of what you're holding subconsciously. The other part we talked about is dreams, right? And when you look at the dreamscape, especially when you're working with a guide, for example, if you're working with someone who is helping you explore, your subconscious experience, similar to the work that I do, when you're in a safe container, you might find that you start to dream more, right? And the reason this happens is because the conscious mind tells the subconscious mind, hey, by the way, we're in a safe place, right? So you can give me all your stuff. Give me all your stuff that you want processed and released that we can deal with, in the light of day. Let's come out of the shadow and deal with this in the light of day, and speak to your guide about this, right? Now it's coming up to the surface to be processed.
Well, speaking of which, then let's talk about the dream I had that I shared with you the other day.
Okay, let's talk about it.
You want to do this? So we're going to, for everyone, listen, I think it was last week, I had a dream, and it was so vivid. And I will say, since working with Sabrina, my dreams have been really like, I wake up and going, I got to write this down. It's so, really, really strong, with the strong in the sense that I remember it, kind of thing. It doesn't fade away right away. And so while I'm even sharing this dream, and even though I took notes, I can still feel it.
Yeah.
I was walking down a flight of stairs with a woman, and it was a date. And we get to a parking lot, and I get inside a car that happened to be like a Ford Bronco. I think it was O.J. Simpson Bronco, but I could be mistaken. And I go, wait a minute, this isn't my car. So then we get out, and I go, there's my car, and it's a Porsche, which I used to own one. But I realized I forgot the key upstairs. So I go upstairs, and she ends up getting into the driver's seat, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat, giving her directions to where we're going. And as we're driving, I realize I forgot where we're going. I just forgot where we're going. And I forgot the restaurant, and I forgot the event that we were going to. And now I'm getting panicky. I just said, keep driving north. That's all I remember saying. It was in Los Angeles. Like if we were on Crenshaw Boulevard in the South Bay, I just said, just drive north. I know we'll get there if we just drive north.
Yeah.
And then I call up my friend who recommended the restaurant, and he goes, oh, shoot, I don't remember what I told you. And then I woke up roughly about this time. So I'm giving everyone the cliff note of what happened. Let me see if there's any other.
So many, there's so much good information in this dream about what you're dealing with subconsciously.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, this is the work I do. So, as a person who, explores, helps people explore the subconscious mind, I will analyze your dream for you if you allow for that. So, it's very significant that you're getting in the wrong car. Right. And so there is a part of you that is afraid that, whether or not you're making the right choices and taking the right steps to achieve your goal. In this case, it's finding a relationship. This is something that we've been talking about in our coaching sessions, is how to manifest the ideal partner, especially after everything you've learned and integrated as a result of your recent breakup. Right.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a fear of am I making the right choices? Am I taking the right steps? Right. And then there's this element of surrender, right? Because, as you're going to get the keys, you realize that you're not in the driver's seat anymore, right? You're a passenger, in a Porsche, no less. But so, this is still a good process, right? It's still a luxury journey. It's a journey where you're being guided and directed and provided for along the way, right? The key here is that you have to surrender. And that's the major theme that I'm hearing, because you don't know where you're going. Right. And it's okay to not know the destination. It's really okay to not know what restaurant it is, or, how you're going to get there, not be in the driver's seat of this process. And I think it's so important, because when we work on developing trust in this dream, I would say that the main message is to really trust the process that you're in, just that, letting go of any fear, anxiety about, the steps or decisions you're making on how to date properly, what methods you're using and so on. And really surrendering. Trust and surrender go together, right? And surrendering outcome and just enjoying the ride, right? You're going up the coast in a Porsche, enjoy the ride, right?
Well, what's interesting? I actually, as I reflect back on it, I remember one thing, because I felt my anxiety for that part of me that didn't know what he was doing, like that. And then my little kid that feels like he's not good enough and you're stupid for forgetting. And I could even feel that. But I also remember, like, I felt a sense of, like, just move forward, like, just go in this direction. I don't know exactly where it is, but just like Disney once said, just keep moving forward. Like,
that also tells me, first of all, that you're aware of your own fears and insecurities. You're aware of that anxiety, that inner child anxiety that we've been working on, which is the uncertainty and the need to know. This is the ego, right? The fear-based consciousness that needs to know, that needs to be in control of the process. So you're aware of that. And at the same time, there's this other, like, omniscient, awareness, presence that says, hey, it's okay. It's okay to not know. Just keep going. Right. You could have gotten out of the car. You could have said, I can't go, I can't be on this ride because I don't know where we're going. Right. But you didn't. You stayed in the vehicle and you just said, keep going. So I think that this is progress, on a subconscious level. The message is very clear. And I think that there's ultimately, you want to also look at how you were feeling in the dream. You were able to, kind of work through that anxiety and still be in a place of knowing. Right. And this is very.
Speaking of dreams, so there were different people in this dream. And last night I had a dream my ex-wife was in it, by the way. And a couple nights before that, Marie was in my dream. And there's a variety of different people in my dream. Correct me if I'm wrong. Those people represent different parts of ourselves?
Yeah. I mean, Jungian analysis would suggest that you are everybody in your dream. Everybody in your dream represents some aspect of who you are. It can be an aspect that needs to be developed. It could be an aspect that requires healing and attention. It can be an aspect that you haven't resolved within yourself. In the case of, like, you dreaming of someone like your ex-wife, it's not necessarily about the person, but it could be whatever that relationship dynamic represented for you, and parts of you that are still either feeling guilty or feeling unresolved or feeling, pain or some kind of attachment to that dynamic. Okay? And so we're always developing aspects of ourselves in the dreams that we have.
Okay, so let's talk a little more about so, we talked about becoming aware. Reaction, attraction, and dream. I want to spend a moment on attraction. I remember once, do you know Jeff Brown, the writer?
Yes.
He wrote the book, Oh God,
Yes.
what's the name of the book? Grounded Spirituality and oh God, what's the other? Uncommon Bond.
Yeah. Uncommon bond I'm familiar with.
Yeah. So, and he once did a post about the law of attraction and how, someone was saying how we attract everything in our life. And he goes, well, if somebody walks up to you and punches you in the nose,
Yeah.
how did I attract that?
Yeah.
And to some degree, I'm like, that one's like a good one. So do we really attract everything in our lives, or like, if so, then why did I attract the person who punched me in the face?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really great question. I know it's a very controversial one because no
Yeah.
one wants to feel like they're attracting brutality,
Yeah.
or being victimized, at that level, at the level of physical safety.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
this is obviously challenging to answer, and yet I would say that we are always co-creating everything. I would
Okay.
stand by that. And again, it's really about looking at the subconscious, and really checking our subconscious to see what we're open to, what we feel susceptible to, what our childhood experience was. The guy who was punched in the nose, what was his childhood like, right? Like, what's his relationship to the masculine, where he feels open and susceptible to something like that without even being aware of it. That's why it's really important to do the subconscious work. Obviously, you're not sitting there with a sign on your forehead saying, come punch me. No
Yeah,
one's,
exactly.
but it happens to us. And there's, as a facilitator, obviously I do spiritual work as well. There are karmic reasons, there are subconscious reasons, there are energetic reasons, there are all of these. There's no accidents in the universe. It's not accidental that someone comes along and punches you in the face, right? There's always some energetic pull towards all the events that occur to us, and the events that either we are victims of or perpetrators of in our lives.
Yeah. Well, and I think where this conversation comes up quite a bit, and what's that woman wrote about, particularly in the area of, finding them, when a person finds themselves in a narcissistic relationship, you
Sure.
know, how did I, so spiritual people say, well, you manifested that. And I think that's kind of a crude way of responding to that.
Well, I
Um,
don't think, first of all, empathy before education, please.
yeah,
Always empathy before education. It's not, and I say that because, when someone is hurting and if someone has felt victimized, if someone
yeah,
has, for example, if the person who just got punched in the face came up to me and said, I just got punched in the face, why is this happening to me? I
yeah,
wouldn't say you manifested that, that just kind of like completely negates the pain, the experience,
yeah,
and the need for empathy. That must have been so hard. That must have been so shocking. That must have been so painful for you. So we have to give empathy first so that people feel like, okay, there's some element of me that's been restored, right? I feel
yeah,
like healing already just by receiving empathetic connection. From
yeah,
there, from the empathetic, experience, now I can start to, and there's enough energy available where I can start to look at where I might be responsible for some things.
yeah,
So it's always a process of meeting people where they are and then gently inviting them into personal responsibility. This is the self-healing journey. It starts with self-awareness, which is incomplete unless you're really looking at your subconscious, beliefs and
yeah.
the trauma that's stored in your body. And I use the word trauma very loosely. Trauma to me is simply an interruption in the natural flow of something, right? And so
Mm,
that could be anything. You hear no as a child, and that feels traumatic, right? It's like
yeah,
we're born infinite, beings with no limitations, right? We don't. We're always in spontaneous joy. We're expressing ourselves. We don't know boundaries when we're little children. We don't understand the meaning of no. We learn no as
yeah,
we're raised, right, by our caregivers. And that fear-based conditioning, which is, parents through no fault of their own. Obviously, we're all
yeah,
doing the best we can with what we know,
yeah,
are creating this environment for humans. And then by the time our personality is formed, we're full of fear, right? We're full of this conditioning process, this traumatic
yeah,
experience. And so we have to, by that time, now we have to go back and go, okay, where am I limiting myself, right? And we have to go back and do that work and start to decondition from ourselves, from what we've learned, right? So we can, yes.
Yeah, when I talk, it's interesting because when I talk in my videos about childhood wounds and traumas and adult traumas, many
Yeah.
people oftentimes think of the worst when they think of the word trauma. And
Mhm.
it could have been simply, and I had a situation where I thought my mother abandoned me
Mm.
when I was skiing at 5 years old. I remember we were in Germany skiing. And after doing the Hoffman process, I went and asked my mom about it. I said, "Do you remember that time you left me alone skiing?" And she goes, "What do you mean I left you alone?" And she goes, "I was just like 5 feet away or whatever it was, maybe 10 or 15 feet away. But in my world, like 5 feet was as far as my visual acuity went. Everything after that, as a child or
Yes.
4 years old, whatever I was, like, so in my mind, I was abandoned, and there was a story that created from this,
Yeah.
and she said, "Look, I was sitting on the bench with a couple other people. You were right in front of me." you know.
But this
Um,
is good though, because perception is creating your reality, right?
yes.
Your perception of those events formed an imprint at the time during your formative years, between the
Yeah.
ages of 0 to 6, loosely,
Yeah.
when the subconscious mind is being,
Yeah.
imprinted, and our personalities are being set up for life, right? How we are developing, you're perceiving this event, and it's going right into your cellular field, and you have
Yeah.
this stored fear that you might be abandoned, right? That your mother, who is, that your nurturer, your caregiver, is not there for you, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't until you did Hoffman many, 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 many years later that you're able to make that connection, right? But think about living your entire life with this idea that you might be abandoned just from that one little experience, right?
Yeah. I mean, to that extent, I'm sure, like I've processed a lot of that. I'd say the most significant one that stands to, that it comes to mind, and I've shared this with you, and I'm sharing this with everyone just as kind of an illustration of how coaching works and whatnot, was the time my third grade teacher told the classroom I was stupid in front of everyone. And, I realized how much that literally changed my identity,
Of course.
because I still to this day will still feel like I'm stupid. Now, where I was maybe 10 or 15 or 20 years ago before I started to do work was
Mhm.
had much stronger triggers for me. Now
Mhm.
the triggers are like a momentary
Yeah,
blip. I mean, there's a residue.
you're doing more subtle work at this time. Yeah, but
Yeah. And
experience of hearing that messaging you heard in the third grade, that's terrifying, right?
yeah.
Terrifying, humiliating. You're feeling unsafe. That is definitely a traumatic experience. And I can't imagine what it must have been like for you to live out the third grade with that teacher, and have that sort of experience looming over you without having anyone to process it with, to help you make that step.
Yeah. That teacher also took a ruler to me back in the day where corporal punishment was kind of the norm. I
Yes.
remember that too. But so and everyone, I'm sharing all of this because we all have experiences or multiple experiences that we probably have forgotten that have
Mhm.
shaped our personality, our perceptions of the world, our subconscious, and you know I always, this is the way I kind of view life, and I'd like your perspective on this.
Sure.
If things aren't going well, that's a time to look inward and say, how am I the cause of this? Or how am I contributing this? Like, I look inward anytime something isn't going well in my life. And that's my barometer for the opportunity to go, oh, okay, if I'm the common denominator here, okay, I'll go and like I'll call, Sabrina, or I'll reach out to my coach, or I reach out to other trusted people in my life to look at how did I make this happen? Like, how did I contribute to this? But the trigger is always kind of what's not working for me.
Mhm.
Because when things are working for me, I'm happy, I'm in flow, I'm in bliss, I'm in the
Do you take credit
vortex.
for those things? Because you're
Huh?
creating. Do you take credit for those things too? Because you're creating
Oh,
both.
fuck yeah, I take credit for it.
Well, see, and that's the thing. This is, I love that you brought this up, because we're always co-creating, right? And
Yeah.
so if we can, for the purposes of this conversation, and perhaps for anyone listening, if we can really just adopt this idea of suspending judgment and not
Yeah.
putting moral values of good and bad on the things that happen in our lives,
Yeah.
just like seeing all experience as valuable, whether it feels like a win. Some things will feel really, really good, and some things will feel really, really challenging, but they're all opportunities for growth and expansion. And they're all indicators of what we're attracting. What is our energy? This is the new consciousness, is to really be aware of your energy. How am I managing my energy? Where am I putting my focus?
Yeah.
What is my language declaring? What am I saying with my inner dialogue, with how I talk to other people? What are my choices a reflection of? Am I choosing things that feed the vision for the life I want to be living? Or am I choosing things that are really a way to cope with the things that happened to me in the past, right? And we can only do this with awareness. Right.
Yeah.
So the first step is, how did I co-create this? That's the first inquiry into self-awareness, is how am I responsible for this? Even when it's hard, it takes a lot of courage, to take a look at, something that happened that's very difficult, and say, how could I possibly have created this when I'm a good person, when I've shown up the way I feel, I needed to, when I've had integrity, when I told the truth, I did all the right things. Why has this happened? Right. And I've heard this many times in my client sessions. And the fact of the matter is there's something that we are not necessarily aware of that is inviting in this lesson that's here to help us.
Yeah. By the way, someone just commented, I just recall the nuns with their rulers in grade school too. So well, it's interesting. I'm going to share something with you. I might have told you I do this, but now in the dating realm, and since my audience is in that space, that's why I talk about it incessantly, because I'm fascinated with human behavior, particularly because dating triggers, I think, some of the most, bizarre human behavior as well. So I was swiping. I got a message from someone on a dating app, and I wasn't interested in this person. But I read the profile, and I energetically said thank you in my mind to this person. But I read it and I go, oh, there was something about their profile that I liked. Oh, good. The universe is sending me, like a little piece of what I like. And so I start looking for the things that resonate, instead of going, oh, 90% of this is wrong. Why are they sending me this? Who are they thinking emailing me? And by the way, I've heard this from women all the time. What is that guy thinking emailing me? That happens frequently. Whereas I'm like, thank you. And then I look for the evidence of things getting closer to my mindset, my experiences, my desires, and just keep looking for the little bits of evidence, because I feel like,
this is such a valuable tool you have. Like, really, when you look at your dating platform, you look at your Bumble account or whatever it is you're on, and you look at your dating platform, and this is a wonderful way to monitor, what am I attracting? Right?
Yeah.
What am I attracting? What message? What's in my profile? What message am I sending out there? What's in my energy? What am I emitting that is bringing this type of person into my sphere? Right? What a wonderful tool. Like we just talked about attractions being a key indicator of what's happening for us on a subconscious level. You have something in real time you can check every day.
By the way, I'm offering, if anyone has a question for Sabrina, myself, write the word question in the chat box. And we'll take questions at this point as well.
Absolutely.
So what else can we offer up for everyone based on this conversation of repelling, whether it's good men, good women, our subconscious? What else can we add today?
Well, I think we've said it. I think, for anyone out there, anyone that is really looking at, finding love, or finding, an ideal relationship that is a reflection of how they want to be treated, a reflection of how they want to be held and seen and valued and cherished, and whatever your qualities are, there's obviously many steps. The first step is to become aware of our subconscious. So become aware.
Well, someone just posted a question. Speaking of that,
Sure.
How do we remember our dreams?
Well, you can set an intention before you go to sleep to tell
I do that.
yourself, I would like to remember my dreams tonight. So please wake me up in the middle of the night, or help me remember when I wake up in the morning. And that usually works. So set an intention before you go to sleep.
By the way, everybody, I do this every night before I go to bed. I also listen to, Sabrina, I just got a new headband that I can wear to listen to my affirmations. And it's just kind of like a cloth, so it's easy to sleep with. So, but I set an intention. I want to remember my dreams.
I also want to say that, dreams, subconscious dreams are more clear and more accurately an indication of what you might be processing when you're in an unaltered state. So if you're taking stuff to go to sleep, for example, if you're taking sleep aids and things like that, I would usually, that has an effect on what we're dreaming. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Definitely. So I think, clear, if you can go to bed without taking anything at all, those are the kind of dreams you really want to pay attention to, really want to record.
So even if you take like an Advil PM at like 9 o'clock at night and you wake up at 6 in the morning, that will affect the dream?
Yeah, it will affect the quality of your dreams for sure. It affects your brain chemistry. Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Good to know. Okay, we have another question from Kathy. I just joined a site. Should I be very direct or say, let's just go with the flow because I don't want to scare men off?
Do you want to answer or should I answer?
I want you to answer this one.
Okay, good. So I think you should be whatever feels most authentic to you. I think it's very important that people share their authentic selves, they not be afraid of who they are. I mean, look at the way that question is framed.
Yeah.
I don't want to scare men off. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
You can't go in with the intention of not scaring men away. You want to scare away the men that are not a match for you, right?
Yeah.
If you're direct and someone can't deal with that, then that's not your person, So I would really encourage anyone, on any site, whether it's a dating site or your personal website or whatever, to just share authentically from your heart.
Yeah, it's interesting because I picked up on the same thing. Like, I don't want to scare men off. Already, you're just in fear-based, right? Like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything wrong. I've always said, if you speak from the heart, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. So,
sharing transparently will never ruin a real connection.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I even, like there was a snarky part of me that when I wrote my profile, like it said, don't contact me if you're not blank. And then I go, oh man, there was a snarkiness in that tone, right? So,
not just snarkiness, it's, it's rigidity.
Yeah.
Right. And so rigidity is off-putting. It's off-putting when you're in this, relationship. The realm of relationships is feminine, right? Attraction is feminine. It's a soft, gentle process of allowing and receiving, transmitting energy, receiving energy. And so when you say, don't contact me if you're that, there's no grace in that. Does that make sense?
No.
So, and that doesn't mean that you should betray your values. I think, as I was saying earlier,
well, I reworded it. I just reworded it. I'm most attracted to blank and
don't tell people what you don't want, essentially.
Yeah.
Don't tell people what you don't want. This is very important, especially for the profile we were reading at the beginning. It's really important not to put out into the universe what you don't want. Whether you're writing an affirmation that you're putting into your subconscious, or you're telling people what you're creating, or you're sharing about what you want, or you're, creating a profile, declare. Put your focus on what you do want, because, energy flows where attention goes.
Yeah. I want everybody to hear and rewind this. Don't put down what you don't want. I don't like using don't there, but it is an ineffective way to put down what you don't want. And at the same time, it's a great opportunity to go, wait a minute, I have this energy. Maybe I need to work on this piece. Before I put myself out there.
Yeah, of course.
Because
this is an important mindset shift, right?
Yeah.
This is when we come out of fear. You're coming out of fear when you stop looking at life from this is what I don't want, right? Versus looking at life from what do I want? Now I'm in love, right? Now I want more of this. I want more of that. Yes to this. People that are saying no all the time are in fear of something. And if you're saying yes to things, you are in love. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and Kathy goes on to ask, but isn't it a natural fear? But I've just come off an emotional roller coaster with a deep emotional friendship.
Okay, so if you've just come off an emotional roller coaster, I would take some space and time to really heal and
Yeah.
deal with your fears,
Yeah.
whatever they are. And I imagine that they must be difficult. And if
Yeah.
you are in fear, you are guarded. So I wouldn't, personally wouldn't want to be in the market trying to attract, I say market, I don't like that term, but out in the universe,
I
trying.
call it the dating marketplace, so it's okay.
I know. So just to use your language, so I wouldn't be putting myself out there trying to attract new relationships if I wasn't, had just come off of something really intense. I would be taking time for myself to regroup, to integrate, to get realigned and centered with
Yeah.
my values, with my self-worth, with what I want and how I want to be treated. And when I can stand in that confidently and securely, then I would create a profile and then, or be open to. You don't have to create a profile on a dating app to attract people into your life. You can just be out in the world and be open to making connections and have that be successful as well.
Well, let me ask you though, because I've observed that probably a significant percentage of people who are in the dating marketplace, okay, I'm calling it that,
Yeah.
uh, are probably rather wounded, rather broken, rather afraid, rather hurt. And to some degree, I think they just think that a relationship will automatically solve that. I think there's this delusion that a relationship will solve that.
Yes.
But
Agree.
can't you still be okay? So can you still be feeling pain? I mean, do you have to be 100% healed to be able to put yourself out there? I mean, does that even really possible?
No. No, you don't. Of course, let's be reasonable. What does 100% healed mean? You can't even
Yeah,
quantify that, right? What
yeah, exactly.
is feeling like you're in a good place, feeling like
Yeah,
you have the emotional capacity to engage fully and be present, right? That there is energy available to get to know another person and to put yourself out there,
yeah,
that to engage at that level. I mean, we know ourselves, right? Like, when your body can handle getting out of bed and going to work. On the days you don't feel well, you know when to call in sick, right? And so you trust yourself in that process and say, today I'm not ready to go out into the world. I need some time to rest. I need some time to
yeah.
recuperate, some time to feel better before I can get up and be my full self, right? So it's just a matter of again, managing your energy and seeing where you're at and seeing how open you are. And if you notice that there's a lot of fear coming through your messaging, or even a lot of fear as you're engaging in the dating process, it's much more beneficial to sit with that and really take a
Yeah.
deep look at what's happening for you internally, subconsciously, as we've been talking about today. That's been our topic, before you start going out into the dating realm, because all you're going to do is attract more fear-based evidence, right?
Actually, so it's interesting because Kathy goes on to say something. She says, I think I'm ready because I know what I want. My friend basically drained me.
Okay, so do you know how to not be drained anymore?
Yeah.
Because
Like,
that's the idea here, is that, if you know what you want, that's great. Knowing what you want is only a portion of it, though. We also
yeah,
have to know how to maintain healthy boundaries, how to say no when it doesn't match up with what we want, how to, manage our energy, which doesn't, sometimes it's about, checking in with whoever it is you're interacting with to make sure this person aligns with your values, with your lifestyle, with your choices, with your needs, right?
yeah. Well, you know what? This has been a fun conversation, my dear. Really quickly, first, everybody, I'll be posting a link to Sabrina's website if you want to check in with her. She's my coach. I use her in a variety of different capacities in my life. From, I shared before, we saged my place and we've done some other things. But most importantly, you've helped me fine tune those places in my life
Yeah.
where I just want to make even more adjustments to living a fully a fulfilled life, without fear. And not that that's going to be an absolute, but the more I'm in the vortex and the more I tweak, I feel like I'm in a better place. And folks, Sabrina is a great person, a great resource. So there'll be a link below to check out her work. Sabrina, is there anything you'd like to share with everyone before we wrap up this conversation about what you do or how you serve or that sort of thing?
Well, I mean, as everybody knows, I'm a facilitator and I hold space. I help people get in touch with their inner life. So we work very much on the subconscious realm. We deal with early childhood conditioning. And essentially, my area of expertise is helping people transcend fear. So moving out of fear-based consciousness and into a place of love, into a place of inner peace and self-confidence and self-awareness so that, you can be empowered to create a life that you love.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to serve you, and whoever else has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
By the way, we have another one that came in, so I figured, hey, you know what? We won't wrap up just yet.
Yeah.
When do you know when you have been in hermit mode too long?
Well, you probably that's your answer. If you're asking the question, you've probably been in hermit mode too long.
Yeah, I was gonna say exactly the same thing.
That's we always know, we always know, and I think hermit mode can serve, can be a beautiful chrysalis for us to heal, right? And take space to really deal with our wounds and our fears and really being intentional, right? With how we want to create our dating life, our love life, or whatever it is, whether it's a business you're building or, whether it's your health that you're reinventing, like being in that space of, as you say, hermit mode, of really being intentional with how I'm going to define this, how I'm going to design this aspect of my life is wonderful. And then we know when it's time, like there's, what's that line between self-care and self-isolation, right? So it's really important to be able to say, okay, well, I'm ready to go out now. I'm ready to do things now. I'm ready to be out in the world.
So I had an awareness, and I believe I shared this with you because somebody asked me, Jonathan, are you ready to be in a relationship? I'd be like, look, I've been ready to be in a relationship for years, well before I even met Marie. I was ready for a relationship. Okay. Now that the relationship ended, I'm still ready for a relationship. Now, the question is, am I ready to open my heart to someone? Okay. Am I ready to be vulnerable? Am I ready, or am I willing to be vulnerable? Am I willing to be open and such like that? And as I answer that question, I'm like, when trust exists, I will feel safer to be open. I feel like my heart is opening up to that. But at the same time, it's important to build trust with someone for that to really open myself up. But I clearly know I'm ready for a relationship. The question I ask everyone, are you really ready or willing to open your heart to someone? If your heart is closed, if your heart is guarded, if you have walls, then you're not ready. Coming back to the
kind of relationship you're ready for if your heart's closed,
Exactly.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So I think let's be intentional with what we're creating, right? So if you're opening ourselves up to a loving partnership, and this is the topic obviously that we're sticking to, we're opening ourselves to loving partnership, we have to be willing to open our hearts, right?
Yeah.
And you find that with this sincere heart's desire to connect on a heart level, to connect in an open, vulnerable way, you'll attract someone who's also willing to meet you there. And I think being met in that space will help anybody open their heart even more, right? It will help sort of go deeper within yourself. And, we've all had the experience where you meet someone and that you really connect with and you fall deeper than you thought you could have, right? Because you're having this new experience, that's amplified experience of love with someone who actually can meet you in that heart-centered place. And so that's wish for everybody, take responsibility for your psyche, for your fears, for your wounds. We all have them. And so, do the inner child work. Nobody gets a pass from really just digging deep and looking at our stuff and what we're operating with and going through that, go through that deconditioning process so that you can really set yourself up. When the subconscious mind is in alignment with our conscious desire, we are in a state of flow, life becomes effortless, and we can really draw into our lives the things that we truly, truly, truly have always wanted to create.
Yeah. Very well said. Well, Sabrina, I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a big, gigantic Jonathan Bear hug of appreciation. I want to thank everybody that was on today. Bonnie, Kathy, Beach Lover. Let's see who else was on. Jade, everyone, Teresa, everyone, big hugs for being on live. Thanks, Sabrina. And we're going to wish everyone a super duper wonderful, fantastic day. Be well, everyone. Bye now.